Hello everyone, in today's video I will be giving a tour of my fish room while also reviewing each one of my tanks. I have a couple tanks in this room, all of which are beginner, very low-tech tanks, and I will be reviewing the equipment, the livestock, and everything else that can be found within these tanks, so be sure to stay tuned. So this is my room where I keep all of my fish tanks. I have two tanks over on this wall right here. Over here I have my smallest tank right there on the windowsill. And then over here I have my fourth tank. Alright, so I'll start off with my smallest tank. Now this tank right here, obviously it barely looks like a tank. Like I said, it's my smallest one. It's 1.7 gallons. And I know you might be thinking it doesn't even look like that much, but there is an entire filtration system. You could see right there, there's even more water underneath the tank right there. I think I got this little thing for like 30-40 bucks off of Amazon about 2 years ago. It has a little retractable phone setup type of thing right there, which I don't use, but I guess it's great if you have it on your desk. As you can see right here, I have it on my windowsill, which works out really great because that means it's constantly growing algae. And then all the little snails in here will pick it up. Now, of course, in this tank, I don't have any fish or shrimp or anything like that. It's far too small for larger animals on that scale. But what I do have, of course, is my small variant of the Anubias plant. And then I also have a lot of snails. So let's see if I can find the bigger one. So he or she is all the way back there right now. I had a huge explosion of hitchhiker bladder snails in my larger tanks. And I thought, what would be better than to put those bladder snails in this small tank right here. So they'll do just fine in this. They're going to constantly reproduce, which is kind of fine. The babies will clean up all the algae too. You can see all those little dots are all the baby snails constantly reproducing. I'm always finding little clusters of eggs. And then besides those snails, you could just barely see I have a ton of sea shrimp. No clue how these guys got into the tank. They kind of just appeared out of nowhere one day, and they are here to stay. But they're great for the tank because they always clean up the dead or decaying matter. You can see right there they've done a great deal on that decaying Anubias leaf right there. And they'll continue to clean up any type of waste that kind of falls to the bottom of the tank too. And then there's even more life that likes to live within the sediment here. Now, of course, as you can tell, this is not the most natural looking tank. I have some very colorful, funky looking gravel marbles in here. Kind of just threw it together for fun, but I really like the way it turns out. There's so much life in here. There's even more copepods and other worms that like to go in the sediment, like I said before. So it's a really fun tank just to watch it grow. And then one of my final things that I love about this tank is that it has this little feature on the top of it where you can hydroponically grow things. So I just chose to put like a Swiss cheese plant in here, just a little clipping of it. And as you can tell, those roots have gone absolutely wild. They kind of bury within the sediment, I should say, the gravel, which is really neat to watch. And of course, it's gonna suck up all those nitrates too, so it really helps to cycle the tank as well. And I don't do any water changes for this tank either. Really, I just do top-offs. You'll notice over here, sometimes that water line goes below the minimum, and then it'll start making like a gurgling sound. Then I just have to fill it back up with water, but no water changes needed for this. Basically, the water enters the tank through those little slits right there, and then travels over there and exits through that over there. And then I'll talk about my 20 gallon. Now this one is the largest tank that I have. It's my favorite one by far just because it is the most heavily planted. Now obviously you could tell I do have a bit of an algae problem going on. Up here the Anubias is suffering the most out of any of the plants. I just recently purchased this Nicru light above. And the watts on this one are like 5-6 more than my previous light, so I'm still just getting used to the timing patterns and what's best for the plants. But as far as the fish go in this tank, you can see I have some rummy-nosed tetras right there. I also have my dwarf gourami up right near the water or the wave maker. Somewhere in here I also have two Julie Coreys, so I could see one in there, but you can't. The camera doesn't really pick them up too well. they like to hang out in that cave right there. Sometimes they'll hang out behind this driftwood as well. Now, as far as the plants go in this tank, over on the left-hand side, this is the needle leaf Java fern, I believe, or like the narrow leaf Java fern. Behind that, I have a beautiful Amazon sword. It's doing great, but obviously you can see it does have some algae growth on it. Behind that, in the back, that is the Rennie sword. Now, this one used to be really pretty, but of course, since I added this light, it's been suffering a little bit just because it's not used to that. It's a little bit under shock, but hopefully the new leaves coming in will do a little bit better. In front of that, I have, this is my favorite plant. I love these guys. The green Wendidi or Wendidi. Not sure how you really pronounce those, but that's what I call them. Now, in the back, I totally forgot what these ones are called. I thought they were rotalas for a while, but the rotalas, their leaves point upwards. These ones you could see curled down. So if you know what that is, just let me know in the comments, but I'm gonna get back to the identification on those ones hopefully soon. These are just more variants of the Java fern. A lot of people call these like lace Java ferns. They have that like splitting end to them at the end of the leaf. And then I have my beautiful Anubias over here. Hopefully it'll start doing better with the algae once I dim the lights down. Then just another normal Java fern right there. And then more of those unidentified plants, and then another needle leaf Java fern. And then as far as equipment goes in this tank, I do have a wave maker. I like the wave makers. Of course, I don't need a wave maker in this tank, but all my fish do fine with it. I don't like when things are just settled at the bottom. I don't like stagnant water. And I just really like the way it kind of flows the plants around, keeps things moving, keeps things circulated. And then up here, I have the Tidal 35 C-Chem HOB filter. It's a little bit dusty right now, so I'll clean that up a little bit. But I absolutely love this filter. I got this, I believe, like 2 Christmases ago. And it's really good. It's really powerful for this tank. I could probably use a bigger one, but it's doing just fine. Now here I've taken the lid off. It's super easy to do. And this is where you control the flow. I have it on full or max flow right now. It can be cleaned a little bit, but I don't like to clean it too much. I like to keep that beneficial bacteria in there. I have my bio media back there, and then this is the filter floss that I just buy in bulk. Makes it very easy. I use it for all of my tanks. And then the light, my newest addition, this is the Night Crew Full Spectrum LED. It's on Amazon. It's actually really cheap too, that's why I got it. Of course, all of my tanks are very low tech. They're all beginner, so nothing too crazy. Even the plants in here, they don't even need a light this bright, but I do love the timer options on this. It has the integrated timer on the wire right there, but then down in here, it also has this remote and makes it really easy to control. It has so many different modes and options. I love this light. Plants are still getting used to it, but overall, it's really great. And then finally on the side of the tank, I always love a nice flowing look of plants when they come down the side. This is not the best demonstration because these leaves are not doing so well on the bottom, but I also have some new growth up here, and the roots are always growing down below. Of course, they're going to take out all those nitrates too, which is really helpful for the tank cycle. And you could probably already tell that most of my tanks, or really all of them, they don't have any special substrate. I don't have any nutrient-rich things within the substrate. I do plant root tabs occasionally for like the Amazon swords or like this green Wendidi over here. But for the most part, these things don't need root tabs. They're gonna take a lot of fertilizer, but from the water column. And I do give them fertilizer, so down here, I'll give them the Thrive C. I dose this 2 times a week, which does the job. Might have to tone it down a little bit to balance it so I'm not getting so much algae, but that's pretty much what I use, nothing too special. And then next to that 20-gallon, I have my third tank. Now this is a 3-gallon, and it does have a betta fish in it, which might be controversial to some people. I know a lot of people say that betta fish need at least a 5-gallon, which I don't really find is that necessary. My betta fish has remained very happy, vibrant colors, always active, always eating, so I don't really see any issue to it. And as far as the plants go, I have a beautiful Anubias that started off with like 3 leaves or 4 leaves, and it's grown really well. The glare is not the best right now, so I'm trying to show it off at an angle. And then over in this direction, I just have some Java moss. I like to stick it in this driftwood right here. This is the only decoration that I have in here. I don't want to overload it because then it will become too small for him. I used to have a little bit more in here, but I found that he could probably use a little bit more room, so I took it out. I just keep it nice and simple with this driftwood here and a few plants in it. And of course, I have just your average gravel like I had in my 20-gallon, nothing too special. Now, one of the most annoying things about this tank is the constant biofilm that forms on the surface. You could see it looks like little white flakes right there. Sometimes it just accumulates like that and it just looks like that. It doesn't harm the fish at all. It doesn't affect anything in the tank. I always check my parameters in the tank and I never see any changes. But of course, it's not the prettiest look. And that's just because this internal filter that I have over here does not have a strong flow whatsoever. This is the only mistake that I made when setting this tank up. This is just your like average Aqueon quiet flow internal filter. Hopefully next summer when I come back from college, I'm gonna replace it with a sponge filter so then it can have that surface agitation. As far as the lights go on this tank, I have a very simple, as you can see, overhead light. Very cheap. I got it off of Amazon sometime in like September. It clips onto the side right there, as you can see. I've had absolutely zero issues with this light. It's really durable. As you can see, it has some like buildup on it too, which is totally fine for it. It has blue and white LEDs, perfect for plant growth. And then off to the side here, there are some lighting options. You can control the white, the blue, and then you could control the actual duration that the light is set on. I find it perfect, and I've had really no issues with it. And then lastly, in the background, you can see I actually have like a little bit of like construction narwhal paper. This was a gift for me, and it's kind of nice. I could probably go something more natural, but this is a tank that will travel down with me to college. It's a little bit hard, but he made it up here to New York from Florida. So he'll be coming down with me back in Tampa. Hopefully he'll be fine doing it. He's done it already once, so hopefully he can do it again. Now this right here is my final tank. This is my 5-gallon tank. In this tank I have some neon tetras, and then I have a large Java fern in the back, and then right behind that I have an African water fern. Now that African water fern that you see was actually a purchase from Petco. Do not underestimate those very small plants that they sell in those tubes. A lot of times when I buy them, I think they're just gonna die right away, but they actually end up usually living and then growing a ton. The Danubius that I had in the 3-gallon was also a Petco purchase, and it grew beautifully. And then as you can see, like I just said, I have some neon tetras in this tank. They do perfectly fine, very small fish. And then also I have some just normal substrate, like I said, in all of my tanks, just have normal gravel. They don't need root tabs, either of these plants. Sometimes I fertilize, but they honestly don't even need it. They do perfectly fine. And now over to the right, I know usually any artificial decor, especially bright colors, are kind of frowned upon once you really get into the fish keeping hobby, but this was something that I actually walked miles for in New York City. I found this in like some really sketchy looking fish keeping or fish store in Chinatown, and it was, I don't know, 10 bucks I got it for. And it does have a little tube in the back, so this is actually how I have my bubbler or aerator air pump. This is how it pumps air into the tank. I don't really need it because the livestock in here isn't that much, and I also have the agitation from the filter over here, but I still like it. I will actually allow algae to grow on it just so it can have more of a natural look, and it kind of blends in a little bit more with the natural ambiance of the tank. I really like the way that wheel spins, but I used to have moss on this, but the Java moss started really growing a lot and it made it too tight for these guys, so this is really all I'll have in this tank. I don't like to plant it too much just because it takes away from the space of the fish. And of course, I did make the mistake of getting an internal filter for this tank. I don't know why, but I guess sponge filters kind of scare me a little bit just because they're new to me. I've never owned one, but I really just should have gone with a sponge filter for this tank. The internal filter definitely does its job. I usually just put like a little thing of media in there, just the, the floss that I'll get. But it does take up quite the amount of room when the sponge filter would probably leave a little bit more room for these guys. It would also take away the fact that I would need an air pump because then that sponge filter would just do the job for you. So once again, next time when I come home from college next summer, that will be an upgrade for this tank as well. Now that is just about all the information that I can give on all of my fish tanks here. If you enjoy content like this, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you again in the next video.